Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I have been in a positively local and really a baseball mood. I haven't done a whole lot of baseball since last season. I didn't do a whole lot of baseball in baseball season because there wasn't a lot of baseball last year. But this is a person that's been a recurring figure in my life. I think the first time I saw her, 1992 at the opening of the stadium, and there were pictures and stories in the Sun and on TV about Janet Marie Smith. And I guess 3 decades later, if you know baseball, you know stadiums, stadia. I'm not sure which one's still the right word.
Ballparks, if you were to ask Larry Lucchino.
Ballparks, there you go, for Larry Lucchino. We welcome Janet Marie Smith. Not a Baltimorean by birth, but I'm going to call it by adoption, despite what that Dodgers thing says, right?
I think probably since I've been here for more than half my life, I can claim it.
You're here right now, though. You're not. That's not some fake room raider thing behind you, and you're really in Santa Monica on a beach, right?
No, it is not. It's the real thing. A bunch of baseball books behind me for inspiration.
Well, the reason I reached you, obviously it's baseball season. I see the work you're doing up in Worcester. I mean, the last time I think we were together was at Dodger Stadium during an election a couple of years ago, as I remember, with the man who saved my wife's life. And, the Dodgers have now won. Have you gotten fitted for your ring? I need to ask.
Not yet, but it's coming. I know it's coming.
Do you have any other rings? Were you ever – do you have Boston rings?
I do. I have Braves rings. I've got Boston rings, and I'm dying to have this World Series ring for the Dodgers this year.
I loved your pictures, you and your family. I was on that immediately, taking selfies the instant it was over with, and having fun with all that. But first things first, I reached you because of the lease with the stadium, and we talk about ways to make Baltimore better. You have inherited various projects, right? Which was, here's a bunch of money, build a stadium in Baltimore. Here's some money, but no space, do something in Boston. Here's a thing in Sarasota that used to be Ed Smith Stadium that looked like an erector set when I was down there in 1990, whatever, 3, 4, 5, whatever that was. And then you go back and, you're a visionary in regard to all of these kinds of things. I guess more than anything, what are you working on right now? Because the Worcester project I see, but I see the Dodgers thing, you're kind of for hire. I mean, they, anywhere they want to build something great, they call you.
Well, I'm always flattered to be asked to work on something. And you're right. I am going into my 9th year with the Dodgers, working on the renovation of 1962 Dodger Stadium, and it has been such a kick. And of course, I've loved being reunited with Stan Kasten again. But some years are more intense than others, and the years that we've had. Had less to do at Chavez Ravine. Stan has allowed me to work on other projects, including the one that I'm working on now with Larry Lucchino and Charles Steinberg in Worcester, to build a new AAA home for the Boston Red Sox as they move from Rhode Island to Worcester. But like Camden Yards in Baltimore, it's meant to be a real transformation of downtown. It's meant to build on a changing and organically interesting city, but to take some 30 acres and immediately turn it into something that dumps hundreds of thousands of people every year into the center city it really is transformational. And of course,
and you've seen that all of your life. I mean, you've seen that in Baltimore, and then it needs to be watered and maintained, and we can all
exactly. And I know you know this, but maybe not everyone does. Though it would appear from, looking at my litany of projects that it's baseball that's the magnet for me. It was really the fact that Camden Yards was being built in the heart of the city and was meant to change the urban environment that brought me to this project and prompted me to write Larry Lucchino, the Orioles president, in the first place. My background is not in sports. It's in urban planning and architecture. And I had studied Baltimore when I was in planning school in New York in the early 80s. And Baltimore was lauded then for having set the pace for transforming a former industrial city and a sort of aging financial district downtown into something that today we think of as an urban entertainment center. But that phrase had not been coined in the late 80s when Camden Yards was born. But it was certainly the attitude and the way that Governor William Donald Schaefer thought about this site when he agreed to lobby for the state legislature to fund this. It was all about making a difference in downtown Baltimore, using the infrastructure that was already in place, but adding to the collection of fun stuff, the aquarium, the science center, the convention center, the hotel, the festival marketplace, the public promenade around the harbor. We take those things for granted because they're now over 30 years old, but that was like a major shift in the way we thought of America's cities.
Janet, if I got elected mayor or governor and I brought you $1 billion and I said, and I'm not telling you anything, you know, when I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to the queen here, right? But I remember all of these cities. I'm 52 now. As you know, I've been to 30 ballparks in 30 days. You were a part of that in LA. You know, I've been to all these cities many, many times over now 30 years. And I've seen cities get better, you know, Nashville, Indianapolis, some places, Charlotte. And I've seen cities get worse. San Diego, some of the, Detroit went like this and then went like this, and then Cleveland went like this and went like this. And Pittsburgh, they're not doing it around sports, but Pittsburgh's got a renaissance going. There are places.
Pittsburgh is doing it around sports. PNC Park is one of the most beautiful parks in the major leagues, and their postcard view of Pittsburgh is like a Chamber of Commerce's dream, right?
Well, but that doesn't happen without people like you. So Marty Conway and I got after it pretty good this week. I mean, we went at it for about an hour. You can find it out at Baltimore Positive. And look, my relationship with the Angelos family is, like that's well watered. Everybody knows that. I'm not concerned with anything in the past, like Mark McGuire. I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about what the future is. And I've been to Atlanta, and I saw what the former Turner Field and Muhammad Ali and what that begat. I've been to Boston before and after, LA before and after with you, just in stadium projects, but I've been in these cities before and after. I've seen what they built in Inglewood on TV now for that Super Bowl next year, and I remember flying over when it was gravel, literally. You too. You've watched that whole thing happen, landing in and out at LAX over the last 5 years, right? Baltimore and what you found, which was this beaten up old rail yard, right? And you were dreaming there might be a football stadium over here one day when we might get a football team. That's how all this happened as we find it right now, whether it's John, Lou, Peter, the next family, Steve, or the next owner. Something's going to need to be done here. I think we can all agree on that. Like, there's going to be a next thing for the Inner Harbor that's now 41 years old, probably 50 years or 45 years old in concept, and Camden Yards, which I don't want to date you too much because it was your concept, but is now 35 years old in concept. And as I brought up to Marty, it was sort of designed to look like 1940s or 50s to begin with. It was sort of looked to be retro to begin with. That to rethink this, and I don't say repurpose it because it's a baseball and a football stadium, but to add more things to it, like St. Louis, like the Xfinity Center in Philly, which everybody here would be familiar with, to have a vision. I wanted to bring you on and just talk about vision because you see these visions. And I've even talked about this in the time you've been in Baltimore. I bet I've had 4 or 5 plans dropped on my desk for the next Baltimore arena. It's going to replace. So they're actually like studies and people put money into this. That's the beginning of this, though, right? Can you run me through what happens in these processes that 15 years from now something's there that's not there now?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the arena because the Baltimore Civic Center, as it was known then, was placed on Howard Street. I think it opened in 1961, and that would have been a big, bold move. That's another example of Baltimore believing in its downtown and believing that you had to change what a downtown was meant to be. Downtowns, up until the 60s were at best were financial centers, none of this residential living, much less the kind of retail environment. So putting an entertainment venue like the Civic Center downtown in 61 would have been considered sort of part of this genre of what Baltimore is known in planning circles for doing. I think the questions you're asking demonstrate perhaps the obvious, which is that cities are never finished. They're living, breathing things that they always need to be somewhat fluid to change with the times, and ballparks are no different. Our habits as citizens of the city, as fans of baseball, however we define ourselves, change over time, and so cities have to change with it. And I think it's no surprise that there's discussion about how to revamp the festival marketplaces at the Inner Harbor, and what, that kind of novelty retail that was so compelling in the early 80s when Jim Rouse first planted that in downtown Baltimore is long gone and been replaced with chain stores that's, are ubiquitous. We can find those anywhere in America. So we have, in my opinion, really need to do something to make it special again. And I think to your question about what would you do if you had a blank check and you were assigned the task of trying to make our center city new again, the place I think we'd focus on would be the public arena. I really think that that's what inspires private investment, and what makes a city great is your public spaces, the promenades, the parks, the retail on the ground floor, the areas that really engage us as citizens. And sports venues are no different. What we've seen evolve in the 30 years since Camden Yards has opened is the simple act of creating Utah Street as a promenade that was open every day and only closed to the public on game days with turnstiles, putting the team store, the Hall of Fame plaques, the retired number monuments,
the restaurant overlooking the stadium,
the originally the Camden Club and now Dempsey's on the ground floor. All of that was part of a goal to make Camden Yards more than just a baseball park, to say, look, we can't just occupy a space in downtown. We need to be up downtown. We need to take everything that can be open on a non-game day and give it life and give it energy and contribute back to the city, and not just be closed up. I mean, Memorial Stadium, as fantastic as it was closed to people except when there was a game. And so the beauty of Camden Yards is that the urban environment is an invitation to be active year round. And I think
different than Dodger Stadium, as you were your Dodge, up on a hill,
right,
literally.
Right. It's the geography is very different. Camden Yards sits sort of intertwined like a piece of a chessboard, and so it would be crazy not to respond to what's going on around you. And I think the Stadium Authority and the Orioles both have taken that mission to heart. And as you start to see more things like music concerts at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, I hope that's a precursor to just more is more, because I think that's what we want out of a publicly funded building, is to see more things take place there and more activity that gives us a reason to go downtown.
Janet Marie Smith is here. She is a Baltimorean, not by birth, but by choice. And, bumping into her up in Hamden from time to time, and at the airport, sometimes out in L.A. with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Just got a World Series ring, another one in blue. And I just wore my Dodger visor that I got with you out on the baseball tour. I was wearing that. You've seen me in that. I wear the Dodger hat enough that I was wearing the Dodger hat at one point in Arizona. I got somebody snippy with me about, never winning. This is before you won. And I was like, I'm not even a Dodgers fan, it was a little weird, but nonetheless, the Worcester situation for you, and I guess we go back 30 years with Camden Yards. I remember, I'm old enough, January, this is my 30th year on the radio, by the way. I'm old enough to remember when in 92, Camden Yards is built, an all-star game and all of that, and the strike. But after that, everyone wanted a Camden Yards. Cleveland wanted one, Texas wanted one, Philadelphia definitely wanted one, right? Like forever. And they all sort of got one, right? And all of the big cities have either done it to get a team. In Nashville, we'll find out, Portland, some other places. But, I guess for the next tier, and we're hearing minor leagues going away in places like Frederick, and obviously Major League Baseball has decided to close down part of the shops, but you're opening up one in a place. All I know about Worcester is my wife used to go see the Worcester Ice Cats there once in a while, and they had a building called the Centrum that Bruce Springsteen would often open tours in that I've driven by the Centrum one time in my life with my wife, I think headed towards Springfield in the basketball museum or whatever. But Worcester and the situation with the Red Sox and a smaller town building a project that they hope makes some big league or bigger league, right?
Well, I think that's what you've touched on is the thing that maybe I'm most proud of about Camden Yards. We were given the mandate by the governor, our former mayor of Baltimore, William Donald Schaefer, to sort of make it one with the city, and our president and CEO, Larry Lucchino's mandate was to make it like an old-fashioned ballpark with modern amenities. And the two missions just fit like hand in glove. In fact, I'm not sure that one without the other would have been successful. So,
By the way, I mean, I was at the paper when Stedman was arguing to put it in Port Covington. And I'm sure you're very keenly familiar with that. But just thinking about the decision alone to put it there, right, that there was a lot of controversy and a lot of money, a lot of people, and things move like that, don't they? One decision changes literally everything, right?
Well, what's exciting, I think, to me is that that you're right. After Camden Yards opened, cities from Denver to San Diego to Pittsburgh worked really hard to find a way to put their new ballparks and sometimes in basketball, hockey, football, whatever it was, in the center city. And it was at a time in America when cities were changing, so there were often footprints available for that. But it has done, I think, arguably a fantastic job of using existing infrastructure and of populating the restaurants, the hotels that are already in a downtown area. And I've loved seeing that change. Now, the fact that the architecture is similar is somewhat by choice. You know, I think in Baltimore, we were using steel trusses because Baltimore is a steel town. We were using masonry because you can't go to the classic neighborhoods of Baltimore without seeing brick row houses. So for us, the choice of materials, while very commonly found in baseball in the old days, was also very much a regional choice. And I think other cities, listen, it's not like we have a hold on steel and brick, so it doesn't bother me that other cities have found that that was the right thing for them. But you do see differences, you know, and so that is the thing I'm most proud of. I have enjoyed the fact that I think at Camden Yards, we probably dialed up design with a capital D a little more than you had seen at the time. And David Ashton, with his graphic design sensibilities, added a wonderful flair to the HOK and inspired authored architecture. And so our scoreboard with its filigree and the sun sign that lights up to denote a hit or an era, the bird wind vanes, the baseballs that we put out on Utah Street to denote home runs, were all about not just decoration on Camden Yards, but telling a story about baseball. And I think that's been very successful. Baseball is a leisurely sport, so having more to yip about with your fans in the next section is always fun. And yet it adds a layer of, I think, just sort of beauty to the ballpark that we've seen other cities mimic too.
But taste of change, right? I mean, you know, open for, you know, if you had to redesign it again today, it would look different, right? I mean, it would have much more open space and that beer deck in the outside and the upper decks and maybe not as many seats. Things really have changed. I mean, if you were given a blank palette to rip things apart and move things around, there would be things that you'd want to change, right?
Well,
for the next 30 years.
There's no denying the trend in baseball is smaller facilities. Camden Yards opened at 48,000. And in 2010, when the Maryland Stadium Authority was replacing seats, Peter Angelos made the choice to put wider seats in the upper deck, which had the benefit of making it more comfortable for fans, but it also was like thinning out the forest. And it resulted in a net loss of seats of about 5,000, but that was appropriate with there's no denying with the team in Washington and with the trend toward ballparks being smaller and smaller, that Camden Yards would not be built at 48,000 today. So that was a nice, easy way of reducing the capacity, and I'm sure that there's thought being given to doing more of that. Much of what's changed about the way fans watch baseball is that we don't see fans clamoring for a seat with a row and a number on it and watching 9 innings with a scorecard in their lap. They're roaming around and going to social areas, much like the bar that we built on top of the batter's eye in 2012 when I had a chance to work for Mr. Angelos again. And
I've had a few beers on that deck, just so you know.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be, and fans are looking for that kind of, doesn't change. It's not a capacity change, but it's an attitude change about not being in a fixed seat. And so much of what we've done at Dodger Stadium in recent years has been to make it a little more fluid and social. Much of what we did at Fenway Park when I worked for the Red Sox was to add not seats per se, but group areas, novelty spaces like the seats on top of the Green Monster. I mean, that's not a stadium chair, that's a bar stool. So I think that that's much of what we're looking at in baseball. Basketball and football is just creating a slightly different way of taking in the game.
Jana Marie Smith is our guest. She's building things in Worcester, picking up World Series rings in L.A., but residing right here on the shores of the Chesapeake Bay. And at some point, I guess, something will be done, and there will be the thing I just wanted to back up on was you wax poetic about cities and urban and spaces and business and all that, and yet the Braves do a whole different thing, right? They take it out to the Owings Mills of Atlanta, right? And they take a big giant plot of land and they bring in literally a neighborhood. And that's another way that it's being done right now, and so different than anything we would have ever thought about here, right?
Well, I think what you're seeing is that 30 years ago, a building like Camden Yards would have been used to fuel development in downtown. Today, because more and more sports venues are being privately financed, the owners of those are looking to capture the residual positive impact of development around it, in part as a way to pay for it. So if you look, for instance, at San Diego, I think it's a wonderful example of a park where the team was given not just the right, but the mandate to develop around Petco Park. And so all of that robust retail, residential, office space was all driven by the deal between the city of San Diego and the Padres. And kudos to the Padres, because they really pulled it off. They did create a neighborhood.
They built a Soho in the middle of San Diego, literally,
well,
right?
And importantly, built on existing infrastructure. Now, the fact that the Braves chose to go outside the city of Atlanta is, a decision I don't have a lot of insight on, but I certainly, as a fan of cities, am impressed with what the San Diegos of the world have done.
Jana Marie, always a pleasure to visit with you. I hope it's over coffee after we get a shot and there's no mask involved and I can see the shimmer of your ring and put it on and spin it and take pictures and bling my ice and do all that stuff. But congratulations. And, I just want to say one last thing on the Dodgers. You've always been kind to me. We come out and we get nice seats and run into celebrities and whatnot. But more than that, we ran into Larry King and Tommy Lasorda the last time we were there. Took pictures. You were with us. You're smiling. I see that. And I don't know that it'll be the same around there without them, right? I mean, like they were –
Oh, right. They were fixtures.
Fixtures. And Larry King came over to our table, and I know Larry a little bit. And after he died, it took me like 2 days to remember that he wrote about my book in King's Things in USA Today. And I thought about my whole life and everything I've ever done in my life, and I thought, man, I was one of King's Things. He called my book a good read in the USA Today. And I'm thinking, I'm never winning a Pulitzer. I'm never winning anything, right? And I thought the last time I saw him, he came over to the table with my wife and I at Dodger Stadium, and the buffet was out. He's like, the Korean ribs, they're fantastic.
Great.
So we sat with Larry and talked to him for a couple of minutes, and I loved Larry, and Larry was always so kind to me. And Tommy Lasorda, had been on my show many times as well. He always gave me this great restaurant recommendation in Brooklyn to eat pasta, and I never went. And it's, I got to go figure that out. But for the Dodgers, what a year, right? I mean, I got to give you 2 minutes to talk about the Dodgers a little bit.
Well, we had a huge project that Stan Kasten had us do for the 2020 season. Of course, we were supposed to host the All-Star game too. So, there we were racing to the finish line for opening day of our baseball season when it was suspended because of the pandemic. And so it's been bittersweet. We've got this fantastic new area in center field, the renovated outfield pavilions. We added new elevators, escalators, pulled the gates out and put more room inside Dodger Stadium. And not a single fan has had a chance to enjoy it in the 11 months now since it's been complete. So I guess we've all got our fingers crossed, like everybody else in America, that fans will be able to be back safely and we can show off our new toy, because it really is just a spectacular addition to Dodger Stadium.
Well, and I guess it's kind of macabre to be thinking that your stadium, your beloved stadium, is being used as a vaccine site. I'm glad we have those going on, but I mean, that's what I've seen, right? I mean,
I love that, though. I think that's what I mean about baseball parks being part of our civic psyche. I really think being a voting center, being a COVID testing center, being a vaccine center, like that's a great role that's a great role. If we're going to be America's pastime, we need to host all kinds of things, and I love that. Actually, I love that.
I'm at on Baltimore Positive right now, and I want to just show everybody, because the pictures didn't move when I moved the website, and I got to go back but Mike, give us Spit Ballpark ranking number 1, Los Angeles Dodgers. I've always loved Dodger Stadium, so there you have it. If you've never been to Dodger Stadium, I'll just give it the plug that it deserves, right? And you got to do it on a night game and watch the sunset.
It is unbelievable. It is. And it's kind of crazy. You know, we just talked a moment ago about the trend in baseball being parks being smaller and smaller. Dodger Stadium opened at 56,000. We still have a capacity of 56,000. So even being reduced to 25% because of COVID, you know, that still gives us a boatload of fans that are able to come. And so I think what's amazing is that how often we sell out with that many seats. And it's a real testament. That is beautiful. It's a testament to Los Angeles. It's a testament to Dodgers, and mostly it's a testament to Dodger fans.
Well, a beautiful night at Chavez Ravine. There's nothing quite like it. Go pick up your ring and go win another one. You guys are all stacked up for another year here. We'll be watching here in Baltimore.
That's our plan. That's our plan.
Our chances of making the postseason were 0.0, according to some fan thing. I don't know. I'll still be watching. Hey, I appreciate you as always. Take care of yourself. Fly safely. Be safe. And we'll see you hopefully at a ballpark near you.
I love that. Thank you, Nestor.
Janet Marie Smith, one of my favorites, in architect, civic planner, Dodger champion, and good recommender of Korean short ribs at Dodger Stadium as well. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop telling stories, looking for solutions in the future for sports here at Baltimore Positive.